Hello students, I am Dr. Ashish and welcome to revision summary of Unit 8 of Management, which is Business Statistics and Operations Management. Today we will cover two topics from this unit. The topics are data collection and sampling. You can expect from both the topics, combining both the topics, you can expect 1 to 2 questions in the examinations, as each question is of 1 mark, so the expected marks are from 1 to 2. The difficulty level will be from easy to moderate. Okay, so let's start the topic. Data means any raw information. Okay, when we are conducting a research, we are collecting some information, okay, for the purpose of research. So we collect some observations which contains some information, and these observations or the raw data or the raw information is known as, it is termed as data. So data means any raw information which we are collecting for the purpose of our research. Now from where we can collect this data? So what are the sources of data? So the sources of data can be divided into two broad categories. We have primary data and the another is secondary data. We will consider both these primary and secondary data one by one. So what is primary data? Primary data is first hand data. Any data which is collected for the first time, any data which is collected for the first time, and because it is collected for the first time, it is original in nature. So any data which is collected for the first time, what is the fresh data or it is the original data, it is termed as primary data. This data is not available anywhere else at any other source. Okay. How we can collect the primary data? It could be the outcome of any experiment, any survey, any interview or observation. So the sources of primary data, it includes surveys, observations, interviews and questionnaire. This is the most common way of collecting the primary data. Survey. In survey, the respondent means the persons to whom we are contacting to collect the information. In survey, the respondents are contacted by the researcher personally, one by one. The researcher may contact them personally or telephonically or through mail. The researcher can put the concerned questions in front of the respondents and they will answer these questions. Now because we have to contact each respondent one by one, so this method will take lot of time, efforts as well as money also, okay, because you have to travel, you have to incur certain expenses, but this data is of high accuracy because we are contacting the respondents with our own personally. So the data will be of high accuracy. We are collecting this data with our own. So the data will be of high accuracy. It will be current, okay, because we are collecting the present information, and because we are asking the questions which is related to our topic. So this data is relevant to our topic also. In observation means watching or notifying any phenomena. Okay, so observation is defined as accurate watching or noting of phenomena as they occur in nature with regard to cause and effect relation. In this method, information is sought by way of investigator's own direct observation. The investigator is observing the units and collecting the information based on the observation. Now we are observing without asking from the respondent. We are not informing respondents that we are observing. Okay, so we are observing the units or the respondents without asking them. This method is independent of respondents' willingness because we are not contacting to the respondents, we are just observing them. So this method is independent of respondents' willingness to respond, and that's why this is relatively less demanding of active cooperation on the part of respondent as happens. It is the most commonly used method, especially in studies related to behavioral science. So in case of studies concerning to behavioral science, observation method is very popular. Okay, just remember this, question may come on this part. Interview is a technique that is primarily used to gain an understanding of the underlying reason and motivation of people's attitude, preferences or behaviors. What we are doing in interview? In interview, we have constructed some questions and we are contacting some persons with whom we are asking these questions. Interviews can be undertaken on personal basis or one-to-one basis or in group. It can be taken personally or it can be taken telephonically also. What is the difference between survey and interview? In interview, we have well-defined questions that we have already prepared that we will ask from the respondent. In survey, we don't have any pre-planned questions with us that we will ask from the respondent. So this is the main difference between survey and interview. Now questionnaire, one of the most commonly used method to collect the primary data. In questionnaire, the respondents are given a list of written questions which they have to respond by taking one of the choices that we have given. Okay, so what we do, we usually prepare objective questions in questionnaire. We will give the respondents certain choices, like 4 choices for a particular question. He will tick one of the choice. Why we are giving the choice? So that respondent will take less time to fill up the questionnaire. We will discuss this topic in the later part also. What are the advantages of primary data? Primary data, because it is collected by the respondent with his own, it is fresh data, it is first hand data, so it is original. It is original data and relevant to the topic of research study, because what information we are asking, it is concerned with our research only. So this data is relevant. The degree of accuracy is very high. So it has a very high degree of accuracy. Primary data is current because we are collecting the latest information. It can be better give a realistic view to the researchers about the topic under consideration. It is reliable. Primary data is reliable because we ourselves is the researcher himself is collecting this data. So this data is reliable also. Okay, because these are collected by the concerned and reliable parties. But there are certain disadvantages also. What are the disadvantages? The collection of primary data requires lot of time and efforts. Okay, so because we are contacting the respondents one by one, okay, or we are preparing a questionnaire and then we are providing the questionnaire to the required respondents. So this data, this type of data, it requires lot of time and efforts. Some respondents do not give timely response. It is not, there is no guarantee that the respondents will give you timely response, or even they will respond or not respond. There is no guarantee about it. With more people, time and efforts, involvement, the cost of data collection goes high. So this data it is costly to collect primary data because the cost of data is high, because there are more persons involved in collecting the data. We need more time to collect this data. Hence the cost of data collection is very high. We have to incur traveling cost, we have to incur admin cost, like we have to print questionnaires, okay, then we have to travel from place to place to provide the questionnaire to the respondents. So this data needs a lot of time and hence cost increases. Now trained persons are required to collect this data. If we are providing questionnaires to the respondent to get them filled, so we need to instruct them also that how they need to fill up the questionnaire. So we need trained person. While we are preparing the questionnaire, okay, we may have to take help from someone, so that person should be a trained person. Inexperienced person in data collection may give inadequate data of the research, and that may disturb the outcomes of our research also. So these are the disadvantages of primary data. Opposed to it, secondary data. As primary data is fresh in nature, secondary data is a data which is already available somewhere. So any type of data which was collected by someone else earlier and now is available at any other source, like internet, like any book, like newspaper, like any article, any research paper. So such data is known as secondary data. Okay, so it was already been collected by someone else, which have already been passed through the statistical process. So this data is second hand data, or it may be a already published data. Okay, the sources can be divided into two parts: internal sources and external sources. Internal sources are within your information, like accounting sources, balance sheet of a company, profit and loss account of a company, then sales forecast report. Every department forecast, so sales department also forecast for the coming time period. That may serve as the source of secondary data because it is already published. Internal experts within the organization, they are also second source of secondary data. Miscellaneous reports, there are various types of studies conducted within an organization, and these reports also serves as the secondary data. Now external sources, there are various government publications, like RBI publish its bulletin, like SEBI publish, Security and Exchange Board of India publish its bulletin. Periodicals and newspaper, they serve as the second source of secondary data. Trade association, like there is an association called SIAM, that is Society of Indian Automobile Manufacturer. So it is the trade association of automobile manufacturing company in India. So they also publish their reports that also serve as the source of secondary data. Foreign government and international agencies, like there are international rating agencies like Moody's, like Fitch, they also publish their reports. Okay, publish surveys of markets, so they also serve as the source of secondary data. What are the advantages of secondary data? It is cheaper, okay, because we need to contact personally from person to person. We are just accessing the information which is already been collected by someone else. So it is cheaper. We can search from internet also, which is very cheaper source of information. It is faster to access. We can get this data in a less time period. To collect primary data, we need lot of time period, as we have already seen. But to collect secondary data, it is very fast. We will take less time. So it is faster to access. It provides a way to access the work of the best scholars all over the world. From internet, we can access any report, and we can get the research or studies done by best scholars around the world, and we can access these studies as a part of our study research. Secondary data save time, okay, because in less time period we can collect it. It save our efforts also, okay, less number of people are required to it, even we alone can do it, and because less time, less efforts, less people are required, so it save money also, and it add on to the value of the research studying. But there are certain disadvantages also. The data collected by third party may not be reliable, because we are not collecting this data with our own, so it may or may not be reliable. So reliability and accuracy of data goes down. Data collected in one location may not be suitable for other one due to variable environmental factor. If we are conducting a study in India, that may not be applicable in rest part of the world, maybe in USA or in European countries, because they have different factors as comparison to our country. So that data, a study conducted in India, may not be suitable in rest part of the world. With the passage of time, the data becomes obsolete. This data may become obsolete. Data changes, the variable changes, the fashion, the trend changes with the passage of time. So a study conducted 20 years back may not be reliable in today's time period. So it may become obsolete and very old and does not suit to the purpose of our study at present. Secondary data can also raise issues of authenticity and copyright. If someone has taken copyright, okay, so we cannot use that data. The authenticity has a question mark, whether the data is authenticated or not. There is no guarantee, because there is no proof that the data is authenticated. So we have to consider this aspect also. Now data collection through questionnaire. As we have discussed, questionnaire is a list of questions prepared for the to collect the information for the purpose of study. So a questionnaire consists of number of questions printed or typed in a definite order. The order of question is also specified. The concerned person can be directly approached by the researcher to answer the question, or the questionnaire can be sent by post or through email also. Email is a very emerging source of emerging way to send the questions to the respondent, because it is very quick and in less time period you can approach to a number of respondents. The respondents have to answer the questions on their own. There are certain essentials of a good questionnaire. The questionnaire should be comparatively short and simple. It should not be too long, so that the respondent may start feeling bored while filling up the questionnaire. It should be very simple, easy to understand. The size of questionnaire should be kept to minimum. Number of questions should be kept minimum. Now, it does not mean that you will not consider the important questions. By minimum size, size of the questionnaire, we means that unnecessary questions should not be there in the questionnaire. Questionnaire should proceed in logical sequence, moving from easy to more difficult. So we should start from the easy question and should approach to the difficult question. Technical term and vague expression capable of different interpretation should be avoided in questionnaire. Technical terms should not be there. May not be everyone is capable to understand some scientific terms, some concepts of physics or mathematics, so they may not be able to answer these questions. So that should be avoided in a questionnaire. Questions affecting the sentiments of the respondents should be avoided. We should not put any questions which will affect the sentiments of the respondents. Brief direction with regard to filling up the questionnaire should invariably be given in the questionnaire itself. How to fill the questionnaire? Okay, so the instructions must be there in the questionnaire that may help the respondent to fill up the questionnaire. So these are the essentials of a good questionnaire. Now, sampling. What do we mean by sampling? Before that, let's understand the meaning of the word universe or population. So when we are conducting a study, we have to consider certain items that we will include in our study. Okay, so the list of all items, the list of all concerned items which are a part of our study is known as population or universe. वो सारे के सारे items जो कि हमारे study का part है, वो सब आइटम्स का ग्रुप को हम बोलेंगे यूनिवर्स या पॉपुलेशन. तो इट constitute all items in any field of inquiry. So when we are considering all the items under the of the study, or we are considering the entire population, then we call it as census inquiry. So census inquiry is known as complete enumeration of all items in the population. So when we are considering all items under consideration, then, or when we are considering the entire population, then we called it as census inquiry. In such an inquiry, when all items are covered, no element of chance is left and highest accuracy is obtained, because we have considered all the items under study. So we have achieved the highest accuracy. Such type of inquiry requires huge amount of time, but it requires huge amount of time. For example, when government conduct population survey, जब government population count करती है तो घर घर जाके सर्वे होते हैं, तो it requires huge amount of time, and because lot of persons are involved, it requires money and energy also. Therefore, this method becomes difficult to adopt when the field of inquiry is large. So when the population size is very large, this method become difficult. Which method? Census inquiry. Because lot of sources has to be used to conduct the study. So it is practically beyond the reach of ordinary researcher. So government can do it because it is a big agency. It has lot of resources available with them. But the ordinary researchers cannot adopt this method. So in practical life, consideration of time and cost almost invariably lead to the selection of only a few items of the purpose of study. So what to do? What ordinary researchers to do in order to conduct their study? So what they will do, instead of considering the entire population, or instead of doing for a census inquiry, what they will do, they will just collect or just consider a part of population. So we will just consider few elements of the population, and the group of these elements is known as sample. Okay, so the selected respondents constitute a sample. So what is sample? These are the selected respondents from the population, and the selection process is called sampling technique. So what we are doing to conduct our study in case of large population size, we will just constitute a sample. Now this sample, while we are formulating a sample, this we have to be very assured that this sample should be a ट्रू रिप्रेजेंटेटिव ऑफ द पॉपुलेशन अंडर कंसिडरेशन, यानी कि सैंपल की जो कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स हैं वो पॉपुलेशन को मैच करने चाहिए. ये सैंपल पॉपुलेशन का ट्रू रिप्रेजेंटेटिव होना चाहिए. देन ओनली द आउटकम ऑफ आवर स्टडी विल मैच द एग्जैक्ट इंफॉर्मेशन. ओके, नाउ स्टैटिस्टिक्स एंड पैरामीटर. और स्टैटिस्टिक्स is a characteristic of sample. So when we are considering a sample, so a statistics is a characteristic of sample, whereas parameter is a statistics of a population. So statistics क्या है? sample का characteristic, और parameter क्या है? population का characteristic. Okay. Sampling error. Now because we are not considering the entire population, we are just considering a part of the population which we called as sample. Okay, now if sample is not a true representative of the population, or even if it is a true representative, but because we have not considered all the elements of the population, so there may be a difference between the population value, okay, or population parameter and estimated value derived from random sample. So this difference is called what? Sampling error. So what is sampling error? It is the part of difference between the population value and the estimated value of the random sample. A sampling error arise because of the entire universe was not sample. Sampling error क्यों arise हो रही है? क्योंकि हमने entire universe को consider नहीं किया था. So sampling error arises because of sampling, because of considering just a sample and not the entire population. Some of the causes of sampling error are error in selection of the sample. We have considered a wrong sample which is not a true representative of the population. Biasness in reporting of data. Sometimes the researcher may be biased in selecting some of the items of the population, because of which sample will not be a true representative of the population. Diversity of population. The population is too diverse. Diversity का मतलब अलग अलग कैरेक्टरिस्टिक. सो जब हमने सैंपल सेलेक्ट किया तो उसमें वो डाइवर्सिटी इंक्लूड नहीं हो सकी. सब्स्टिट्यूट ऑफ सैंपल यूनिट्स फॉर कन्वीनियंस. हमने अपनी कन्वीनियंस के अकॉर्डिंग सैंपलिंग यूनिट को सेलेक्ट कर लिया. फॉल्टी डिमार्केशन ऑफ सैंपल यूनिवर्स. हमने यूनिवर्स को गलत डिफाइन किया और हमने सैंपलिंग भी गलत करी, इस वजह से ये एरर हो सकती है. नो सैंपलिंग एरर इज ऑफ टू टाइप, बायस्ड एरर एंड अनबायस्ड एरर. Bias error arises from any bias in selection and estimation. When we are biased in selecting a particular item in the sample, then that is called as bias error. These errors creep in because of the bias of person or instrument involved in the collection of data, and the nature of statistical method followed is such that the error has a tendency to grow in magnitude with the increase in number of observation. जैसे जैसे number of observations बढ़ती जाएंगी वैसे वैसे biased errors भी बढ़ती जाएंगी. Unbiased errors. Other than biased errors, we have unbiased errors. These errors arise due to chance difference between the member of population included in the sample and those not included. So we have not, because we have not considered all the items of the population, so sample may not be a true representative of the population. In case of a diverse population, sample may not be a true representative. So that the error arise because of this is what? Biased error. Okay. Other than sampling, we have non-sampling error. So non-sampling error, it is due to it is not because of the sampling, it is just because they occur while conducting the survey. So once we have formed the sample, we have collected, we have defined the sample, then while during the survey part or during the analysis part, these errors may occur. So non-sampling error is the statistical error. They occur during the survey or the analysis part that arises due to factors other than the ones that occur when inference means conclusion, is drawn from the sample. Such errors can arise due to number of causes like defective method of data collection. हमारा जो data collection का method था वही डिफेक्टिव था, इसकी वजह से जो यूनिट्स हमने कलेक्ट करी उनसे हमें सही इंफॉर्मेशन नहीं मिल पाई, एंड रॉन्ग टेबुलेशंस, फॉल्टी डेफिनेशंस ऑफ द अबाउट द सैंपल और द पॉपुलेशन, हमने पॉपुलेशन को ही गलत डिफाइन किया, सैंपल को गलत डिफाइन किया, इनएडिक्वेट एंड इनकंसिस्टेंट ऑब्जेक्टिविटी, एरर इन लोकेशन ऑफ यूनिट्स, कौन सी यूनिट्स हमें सैंपल में कंसीडर करनी थी वो हमने गलत मार्क करी, lack of trained and qualified staff, so they may incur calculation error, they may incur human error, okay, wrong entries may be there while entering the information in electronic format से हम लैपटॉप पे जब इंफॉर्मेशन फीड कर रहे हैं तो रॉन्ग इंफॉर्मेशन फीड हो सकती है बिकॉज द स्टाफ was not qualified and trained, so because of such reasons these errors may occur. नॉन सैम्पलिंग एरर्स आर अनअवॉइडेबल, ये एरर्स अनअवॉइडेबल हैं, हम सैम्पलिंग एरर्स को अवॉइड कर सकते हैं कैसे, सैंपल साइज को इंक्रीज करके, या हम सारे के सारे कंप्लीट पॉपुलेशन को कंसीडर कर सकते हैं, लेकिन नॉन सैम्पलिंग एरर दीज आर अनअवॉइडेबल। अगर आपने कोई कैलकुलेशन मिस्टेक कर दी तो वो तो सैंपल कंसीडर करेंगे तब भी हो सकती है, और अगर पूरी पॉपुलेशन को कंसीडर करेंगे तब भी हो सकती है। सो दीज एरर्स आर अनअवॉइडेबल इन सेंसस एंड सर्वेज. So in both the methods, non-sampling errors are there. The data collected by complete enumeration in census is free from sampling error. जब हम enumeration method use कर रहे हैं, पूरे population को consider कर रहे हैं, then it is free from sampling error because हम sample consider कर ही नहीं रहे हैं, but would not remain free from non-sampling error. Census method में भी non-sampling error present होंगी. The data collected through sample surveys can have both सैम्पलिंग एरर एज वेल एज नॉन सैम्पलिंग एरर. सो सेंसस सर्वे में नॉन सैम्पलिंग एरर्स होंगी लेकिन सैम्पलिंग एरर्स नहीं होंगी, वाइल सैम्पलिंग मेथड में दोनों ही टाइप्स की एरर प्रेजेंट होंगी. सो दीज आर दी सोर्सेज ऑफ, these are the reasons of non-sampling error that we have already discussed. So these are the difference between sampling and non-sampling error. Sampling error arises on account of fluctuation in sampling, whereas non-sampling error arises due to other reasons. Sampling error are not present in census investigation, we have already discussed, whereas non-sampling error affect both type of investigation, census as well as sample. Sampling errors are compensated by enhancing the size of sample. More will be the size of sample, lesser will be the sampling error. बट नॉन सैम्पलिंग एरर आर ऑफ क्यूमुलेटिव नेचर, जैसे जैसे आप ज्यादा डेटा कलेक्ट करते जाएंगे वैसे वैसे गलती होने के चांसेस बढ़ते जाएंगे. सो सैम्पलिंग एरर्स इंक्रीजेस विद द इंक्रीज इन साइज ऑफ सैंपल. ओके, सो द फॉर्मूला ऑफ कैलकुलेटिंग सैम्पलिंग एरर इज सैम्पलिंग एरर इज इक्वल्स टू प्लस माइनस अंडर रूट 2500 डिवाइडेड बाय सैंपल साइज मल्टीप्लाई बाय 1.96. ये 1.96 रूट के बाहर है. सो द फॉर्मूला ऑफ कैलकुलेटिंग सैम्पलिंग एरर इज प्लस माइनस अंडर रूट 2500 divided by sample size multiplied by 1.96. So we have given a question, what is sampling error if the weight of 60 men is 58 kg. हमें 60 men का weight given है 58 kg, ओके, एवरेज वेट. तो सैंपल साइज कितना हो गया यहाँ पे 60. तो सैम्पलिंग एरर अकॉर्डिंग टू दिस फॉर्मूला क्या हो जाएगा, प्लस माइनस अंडर रूट 2500 डिवाइडेड बाय 60 multiply by 1.96. So this value will be approximately 12.65 plus minus 12.65. This is the formula to calculate sampling error. Now these are the different sampling techniques. We can divide various sampling techniques into two parts: probability or random sampling techniques, or non-probability or non-random sampling techniques. We will discuss them with one by one. Probability sampling, probability or random sampling technique, this means when each item of the sample, each item of the population has equal chance of considering in the sample. जब population के हर item का equal chance होगा to be considered under this sample, then this is called probability or random sampling. So the first technique is simple random sampling. If each and every item of population has equal chance of being selected, the sample is referred to as simple random sampling. Simple random sampling is free from personal bias for the reason that the investigator does not exercise his choice of preference in the selection of items. So we are randomly selecting an item. For example, say there is a box which contains say 50 balls of different colors. So without looking into the box, we are just drawing a ball from the box. So we are not biased in the selection. We are randomly selecting a ball from the box. So such a sampling technique is called probability or random sampling technique or simple random sampling technique. The various methods are lottery method or table of random numbers. Stratified sampling. Stratified means groups. Okay, stratifies, the word stratified is taken from the word strata, which means homogeneous groups. Okay, stratified sampling is a type of sampling method in which the total population is divided into smaller homogeneous group. Homogeneous group means which contain similar, in which the items contain similar characteristic. होमोजेनियस ग्रुप्स और स्ट्रेटा टू कंप्लीट द सैम्पलिंग प्रोसेस. तो हम क्या कर रहे हैं, एक पॉपुलेशन को स्मॉलर ग्रुप्स में डिवाइड कर रहे हैं विच आर होमोजेनियस ग्रुप्स. नाउ फ्रॉम दीज डिफरेंट ग्रुप्स, these groups are called strata. तो आफ्टर डिवाइडिंग द पॉपुलेशन इनटू स्ट्रेटा, अ सैंपल इज टेकन फ्रॉम ईच ग्रुप. अब हम हर ग्रुप में से एक सैंपल लेंगे. नाउ दिस सैंपल मे बी बेस्ड ऑन simple random sampling method. Okay, now we can form the group based on age, gender, nationality, job profile, education level, etc. So these are the basis of constructing the strata or the group. Systematic sampling. In this method, sample from a large population are selected according to a random starting point. तो हम क्या कर रहे हैं, हमने एक starting point को fix कर लिया. अब उसके बाद में हम एक fix interval पर sample को items को select कर रहे हैं population में. This interval called the sampling interval is calculated by dividing the population size by the desired sample size. Suppose कि हमारे पास में population size 1000 का है. Okay, 1000 का population size है और हमें जो sample चाहिए, sample suppose हमें 100 units का चाहिए. तो हम क्या करेंगे, इस 1000 को sample size 100 से divide कर देंगे. तो हमें क्या मिला, 10. अब हम क्या करेंगे, एक item को fix कर लेंगे, select कर लेंगे और अब उसके बाद हर 10th आइटम को अपने सैंपल में कंसीडर करेंगे. तो हमने क्या किया, स्टार्टिंग पॉइंट को फिक्स कर लिया और उसके बाद हमने इंटरवल फिक्स कर दिया. ये इंटरवल क्या है यहाँ पर, 10. तो अब हम हर 10th आइटम को कंसीडर करेंगे हमारे सैंपल में. तो इस तरीके से हमारे को जो सैंपल मिलेगा उसका साइज क्या हो जाएगा, 100 का हो जाएगा. इन मल्टी स्टेज सैंपलिंग, एज द नेम सजेस्ट मल्टी स्टेज, वी आर डिवाइडिंग अ लार्ज पॉपुलेशन इनटू क्लस्टर्स और ग्रुप्स. सो हम डिफरेंट स्टेजेस में सैंपलिंग कर रहे हैं. तो हमने क्या किया, पहले पॉपुलेशन को डिफरेंट स्टेजेस में यानी कि स्मॉल ग्रुप्स में डिवाइड कर दिया. ओके, अ कॉम्बिनेशन एंड देन अ कॉम्बिनेशन ऑफ स्ट्रेटिफाइड सैंपलिंग और सिंपल रैंडम सैंपलिंग इज यूज्ड इन द लेटर स्टेजेस. इन एवरी स्टेज द सैंपल्स बिकम स्मॉलर एंड स्मॉलर. सो वी आर डिवाइडिंग द अ लार्ज पॉपुलेशन इनटू स्मॉलर ग्रुप्स और क्लस्टर्स. सो वी आर stage by stage we are dividing the population into smaller groups. We will continue to divide the population into smaller group until the required sample size is not achieved, and then we can from each group we can consider the items, or we can draw the items based on different sampling technique like stratified sampling technique or simple random sampling technique. Now, non-probability or non-random sampling. Non-probability or non-random sampling is a sampling technique where the samples are gathered in a process that does not give all individuals in population equal chance of being selected. तो जब सभी इंडिविजुअल आइटम्स का इक्वल चांस नहीं होगा सिलेक्शन का, यानी कि देयर विल बी बायसनेस, देन इट इज नोन एज नॉन सैम्पलिंग और नॉन रैंडम सैम्पलिंग. सो व्हाट आर द डिफरेंट टेक्निक्स? वी हैव जजमेंटल सैम्पलिंग. Judgmental sampling is sampling based on the say own knowledge of the researcher. Okay, so researcher based on his own knowledge is drawing the sample. Okay, sample draw depend entirely on the personal judgment of the investigator. So we are not following any technique that we have discussed earlierly based on our knowledge or based on our own judgment of the interviewer, the researcher. We are formulating the sample. It is more commonly known as purposive sampling. The success of judgmental sampling depends on the excellence of investigator in making the judgment, and the excellence depends on the knowledge of the investigator. This method is simple but not scientific, because we are not using any formula here. So this method is although simple, but it is not scientific in nature, and it may be affected by personal bias of the investigator, because we are using our own knowledge. We could be biased in selecting the items. Quota sampling, it is a type of judgmental sampling where we have fixed some quotas. Okay, quotas means a proportion are set up according to given criteria, but the selection of sample within the quotas depend on personal judgment. For example, we have to consider some female and some male respondents. तो हमने quota fix कर दिया that there will be 30% female respondents and remaining 70% will be male respondents. So we have fixed the quota. Now within the quota we can draw the sample. Then we have convenience sampling. This method is based on the convenience of the researcher. सबसे कम यूज में जो मेथड आता है वो कन्वीनियंस सैम्पलिंग है, और सबसे ज्यादा एरर होने के चांसेस जो है वो कन्वीनियंस सैम्पलिंग मेथड में है. इन दिस टाइप ऑफ सैम्पलिंग रिसर्चर सेलेक्ट द आइटम एज पर देयर ओन कन्वीनियंस. दिस टेक्निक इज ऑल्सो कॉल्ड चंक, which means selection of fraction of population due to convenience available. The subjects who are readily accessible, तो हम कौन से items को select कर रहे हैं जो कि readily accessible हैं और available to the researcher are selected. A chunk is rarely a good representative of the population. So the results of this technique are generally biased and unsatisfactory, जैसा कि मैंने आपको बताया. Snowball sampling is a random sampling technique wherein the initial informants are approached who through their social network nominate or refer the participants that meet the eligibility criteria of the research under study. This method is also called as referral sampling method or chain sampling method. तो यहाँ पर हम क्या कर रहे हैं, जब हमें पॉपुलेशन के बारे में मालूम नहीं है कि किन रेस्पोंडेंट्स को हमें कंसिडर करना है, so what we are doing based on some referral we will approach the respondent. फॉर एग्जाम्पल हम एक स्टडी कंडक्ट कर रहे हैं कैंसर पेशेंट्स के ऊपर. अब हमें नहीं पता कि किन लोगों को कैंसर का डिजीज है. सो व्हाट वी विल डू, वी विल ट्राई टू फाइंड आउट सम रेफरेंस. हम किसी हॉस्पिटल में जाके किसी डॉक्टर से मिलके एक ऐसे पेशेंट के बारे में मालूम कर सकते हैं जिसको कि कैंसर का डिजीज हुआ है. देन बेस्ड ऑन दैट पर्टिकुलर रेस्पोंडेंट हम उससे इंफॉर्मेशन कलेक्ट कर सकते हैं और कुछ लोगों के बारे में जिनको कि वो जानता है कि ये डिजीज हुआ है. Then when we meet these patients of cancer, we can again ask them about other patients who is suffering from the disease. So what we are doing, we are constructing a chain. From one respondent, we are getting reference of few more respondents. From those respondents, we are taking the reference of few more respondents. Okay, so we are constructing a chain here. So it is also called referral or chain sampling technique. So now we will consider some of the questions. The difference between the point estimate. Now point estimate means point estimates means a single value when we have constructed a sample which is a best guess about the population. The difference between the point estimate and the true value of population parameter being estimated is known as, हमने भी डिस्कस किया था, sampling error का मतलब the difference between the population parameter and the sample characteristics. Okay, the population characteristic and the sample characteristics or sample statistics. That was sampling error. Now estimation error. Estimation error is the error between the actual parameter and the estimated parameter. तो यहाँ पर ये दोनों ही ऑप्शन इस क्वेश्चन के लिए सही है. ओके, सो द करेक्ट ऑप्शन विल बी ऑप्शन A and B. Option A and B is given in third choice. So this will be the right answer. Identify the right combination of primary data collection method from the following. हमें प्राइमरी डेटा कलेक्शन मेथड मालूम करने हैं. ऑब्जर्वेशन अभी हमने डिस्कस किया, प्राइमरी डेटा मेथड है. एक्सपेरिमेंटेशन डेफिनेटली प्राइमरी डेटा कलेक्शन का मेथड है. कॉर्पोरेट डेटाबेस, नो, दिस इज अ सोर्स ऑफ सेकेंडरी डेटा. ओके, सर्वे मेथड डेफिनेटली प्राइमरी डेटा कलेक्शन मेथड है। तो ए, बी एंड डी आर दी राइट चॉइस. So the correct answer will be A, B and D is given in option number 3. So this will be the right answer. When a researcher want to select a representative to sample to access different parameters from a large sized finite heterogeneous population. Now heterogeneous का मतलब कि different characteristics. Heterogeneous population means in which the respondent bears consist of different characteristics. सब items अलग अलग हैं. Which one of the following sampling technique is the most appropriate? Judgmental sampling technique definitely नहीं होगी. Simple random sampling technique में हम consider करते हैं homogeneous population को and not heterogeneous. Quota sampling technique definitely नहीं होगी. The correct answer will be stratified random sampling technique. In stratified random sampling technique, we divide the entire population into stratas or smaller group, and then from each group we are formulating a sample. We are bringing out some units to form our sample. So stratified random sampling. Please remember, in case of large heterogeneous population, we will always consider stratified random sampling technique. So this was about the revision of part 2 of unit 8. If you are preparing for IIT JAM, CSIR NET, NTDC NET, then you can buy the study material of Eduncle. You can also download the app of Eduncle from your Play Store. On this app, you will find the support of more than 250 faculties who will help you to solve your queries. Thank you very much.